Maybe,
Okay.
perhaps, possibly.
Maybe. I just got a Twitter notification, so I can go. Nice smile. That'll be a good screen cap. All right. So tonight we are thrilled to welcome Mary Mangan to the show. Mary is perhaps better known to people on the internet as Mem Somerville on Twitter, and is, in my opinion, one of the most well-spoken, intelligent science communicators on social media. So there's my intro to you. So like, yeah, I mean, really, you're like one of those people that, like, when you followed me on Twitter, I was like, oh,
squeak.
Like, yay. So yes, and we all met last year at Nexus in New York City. So we've actually all been in the same room
at the same time.
Yeah, it's a rare thing in this like science communication skeptic world that we've all actually met in real life, because the power of the internet has brought us together in most cases.
Absolutely.
So welcome.
Thank you. And here's my cat. I told you she might come wrong.
Yeah, there we go. We like cats here. Dan loves cats.
My cat is on the floor, and I have stuff all over my floor, or else I would show the video on it. But he is deeply involved in licking himself right now, so I don't want to disrupt that.
I have a pug.
Mine is shredding my notes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have a dog next to me, but he's not going to move.
Not just any type of dog, but a pug.
An adorable pug. He doesn't have breathing problems.
Another podcast.
He doesn't have breathing problems. All right, so Mary, let's learn about you. So I would love to know, like, what is your like science and skepticism like origin story? Like, what brought you to the point where, you know, we know who you are on Twitter and you say a lot of awesome stuff, and what brought you there?
Well, if you say enough stuff, some of it's going to be right, you know, so it's a volume thing for me. But
my new philosophy on life.
I actually am a scientist. I have a PhD in cell molecular and developmental biology. So I came through the regular science path. But I also came from a family that was very politically active. When I was growing up, my dad's best friend was the mayor of our city. So we hung around with the mayor, but he was just another guy. And so for me, politics was not a strange species. It was, you know, just what you do. And you talk to politicians and you tell them what your problems are and these sorts of things. And house parties to raise money for them, and you stand outdoors holding signs for them. And so I thought that was normal. I thought everyone went to the city council meetings every week like my dad did. Just thought, I found out later that's not how everyone else's life is. So those two things, I think, have led me to where we are today. But the specific act of getting into the more science advocacy, skepticism sort of realm, it came during the Bush administration. If you remember back to the early 2000s,
the good old days, I think we can call them.
Right. They seem better all the time now.
I know.
Yeah. When we used to fight about stem cell research, actually, however, some of the same things are coming back around. Creationism in classrooms, right? So those things were coming up. At that time, political blogs were just starting to bubble up too, right? So both of those things were combining for me as science political advocacy sort of things. To it from the politics side, actually. But then I found out at the place I was writing a lot, this was the Daily Kos. I don't know if you guys know the Daily Kos. It's a liberal blog in the US. And I was writing there on topics that I was interested in. And then I started writing specifically on science topics, like stem cell research, like creationism in classrooms, like vaccines. I wrote climate stuff too at that time. So I was getting used to writing, and I was getting used to speaking out publicly on these issues, which was really good. And I was used to getting pushback and wrestling in the comment sections and all that stuff. But it was also kind of a friendly place, right? Because this was my tribe, sort of. I was in that group. And we were all aligned. We were all aligned on stem cells. We were all aligned on creationism in classrooms. We were all aligned on climate. We were all aligned on vaccine. Well, most of them were aligned on vaccines. There's still a little thread of anti-pharma stuff there. But I started writing about GMOs because I love golden rice. Golden rice is one of the things that I thought was just the coolest idea ever. And I was like, I couldn't believe it wasn't out yet. I was so excited for how that was going to help, reduce blindness in children. you know, kids who really need this, it will change their lives, you know. And so that's how I started. And then I found out that the community was not aligned on this at all. And worse than that, they actually had a kind of a site favorite, I guess, like a, you know, a teacher's pet sort of thing, who was writing on food issues, and she was terrible, terrible. But she had the ear of management, right? Yeah. So I was trying to battle against, like, this stuff is not right, you guys. Can you put my stuff up there with some of the things that are good about, you know, we think these things are good that we could agree on, but they didn't agree with me on these things. So, but that was another interesting dynamic, I think, an important one too, because we're still facing that, you know, even among our own tribe, this is a case where we're not really aligned. So that's really where I came into the science, politics, advocacy sort of thing. Eventually, though, I did get thrown out of Daily Kos. It was a good, it was like training wheels, you know, it was good for me. But I find that eventually conspiracy theorists are just not good allies. You know, you can't count on them, right? So I was like,
it's a good rule right there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so I was like, you know, maybe this is not worth my time. And so eventually you just stop fighting that, banging your head against the wall there. And what I specifically targeted was some kind of science community activism instead. And that's how I got in more with the skeptics, because they were doing the creationism in classroom sort of stuff. And so I was still aligned with them. But that brought me into more of like the science blogosphere. It was when science blogs were all coming up too. And there was a really good community forming of the science bloggers. And that, I think, is also still important too, because that community that formed, even at that time, even though a lot of that is sort of fragmented now for various reasons, including Facebook and other things, it's important to form that sort of base where we all were sharing information about topics that were interesting to us, vaccine articles, or malaria, or GMO mosquitoes, or like, so there was a base of people who were discussing these things. I think that was important for us to have. We started to target more of the science activism that way. So.
And so as far as like activism and all of that goes, I mean, something that's, you know, happened recently, you know, I think as a response to the current climate, and we can give our opinions on that too, but is the like the March for Science. And I know you attended DC March, right? And Dan also did. I went to one in Burlington, Vermont. But I would love to know like your thoughts about that as an event, but also like on a larger scale as is it a movement? What happens from that? Kind of your thoughts on the activist part of that.
So delighted to hear about Science March and to watch it develop, because I have been waiting for years for scientists to show up in politics. And I know it's distasteful, and I know why it's distasteful, and I know why people are reluctant to get out into the streets. But my feeling is that a group who has some kind of issue never gets anywhere unless they start making noise. And I actually wore my park ranger gear to this because I used to be a park ranger years ago. And I was a park ranger at a store. It was a park that was about the Industrial Revolution, and it was about workers' rights, and it was about immigrant groups. And every time there was a new wave of immigrants, it wasn't until the immigrants had voting rights and made noise about an issue, or the workers were doing this. Like, they had to make noise before anything changed. So I'm firmly in that you have to make noise sort of camp. And I was so excited by the Science March stuff. However, a lot of drama erupted over this.
Yes, and you helped. You really you helped
the community.
With one of them.
Yes.
With what is drama.
Well, I don't know if I helped, but I said my piece, which is what I do a lot. So, but yeah, so I'm not on Facebook, so I couldn't know what was actually happening there. I was hearing reports of people being mistreated or in the groups and being disrespected and all that, and I was saddened by that. There were also other issues too about who do we align with, and what if there are anti-GMO groups who are showing up with this? Like, I'm not going to go to this. Well, politics is messy. There are going to be times when you're going to have to align with people who you don't entirely believe in, but to get something done, you have to do it. And I'm a street fighter, and I'm also a pragmatist. I know that I think it's more valuable to bring more groups into this and work on them once they're in, which is kind of what we did. And I think that worked in this case for us. So when I saw people sort of trash talking the march for various reasons, some of them were legit, some of them I thought were not legit, but what I found not constructive is the circular firing squad sort of mentality. Like, I felt like the aim was misplaced. We have a real place to focus right now, and I know it's not supposed to be an anti-Trump march. It's a broader march for respect for science and policy and evidence-based policy and things like that. But I feel like that should be our target, and I had wished that more people could focus on the real target. So I made some I put some thoughts out about that. They weren't all popular, but anyway, but I just don't understand. I still don't understand what you think accomplishes anything for you if you don't go. Like, what is the point of not going? Who wins there? Like, I don't get that.
It requires pants for one. So let's be honest.
Okay, laundry.
That is a huge hump to get over.
That's the practical stuff. But once you have those pants on.
Have you ever worn pants? They are the worst.
Well, all right.
So what was your experience actually? So everyone wore pants. What was your experience actually being there? Like, was it like because I know, like, for me, when I went to the one in Vermont, I mean, it was kind of like shitty weather. Like, who knew, like, if a lot of people were going to show up. You guys had it worse, but like, it ended up being, I mean, I think they were expecting like 500 people there. It ended up being about 1,500 people that showed up.
Good.
And it was, as far as the vibe went, like, it was just cool to have, like, there were a lot of families, lots of kids, like, with, homemade kid signs and like,
right.
That's what I like.
I thought it was great for kids. Yeah. And that's another thing that I thought, a lot of the inside baseball stuff that was going on was hurting these kids, and I thought that was unfair, because kids really wanted to get out and celebrate this and support this. And these kids are about to inherit a planet where all the coral reefs are dying, and so I feel like the circular stuff was not moving us forward at all. So anyway, so in DC, it was soggy, absolutely. But I had my park ranger gear on, and park rangers have really good gear. So I was prepared for that. But and there were people everywhere. We couldn't believe it. After we got in through the security barrier, we went over to the tents where we had the teach-ins, and those were full, and we went back over later, and that was people everywhere. And we actually left for lunch at one point, and the line was blocks and blocks to get through the security thing after we left again.
Yeah.
So I was astonished with the turnout and delighted by that. So in spite of all the prior drama, people did show, and people did have a presence, and people did bring creative signs. And apparently George Soros paid all of these people. No, sorry, that was something else. One of the first signs I saw when I got there was, "I paid for this sign myself. I did not pay. The Soros did not pay for this." Anyway, so it was really nice for the first time to see that many science-minded folks aligned on this, because I think that's really rare for our community, because we argue with each other all the time. It's what we do, and we don't take it personally. Sometimes it's personal, but typically it's not.
But ideally, it's just an exchange of ideas, and And in grad school, that's what we learned. Like, you wanted to challenge your own lab the most, because if they ruined your reputation around the world, like, that was terrible for everyone. So we all, we wanted it to be well done, and so when we argue, we're trying to get the best ideas out of everybody. At least that's the way we think about it.
Well, I was also in DC. It was just, it was so, like, I think you've undersold how miserable the rain made that, because it was I mean, I had pants on and it was raining and we were going around. We were actually trying to find people that maybe had some maybe questionable things to say. And I had like my camera and I had a couple people helping me, and we couldn't find really like. At the end, there was a Pizzagate guy. I did a live video on Facebook with him, and it was amazing. But outside, I don't think he was actually part of that because he was way too happy to talk about Hillary Clinton. And but beyond that, like we couldn't find anybody that had like, say, well, yeah, I like GMOs. I like, climate change is real, but vaccines. I'm just worried about, toxins or autism or something like that. And like we talked to, I don't even know how many people we talked to, and we couldn't find like anybody that had any sort of anything to that effect. Everybody, it was very positive, and it was just very, for me, it was a little overwhelming just how positive the whole thing was, and it was completely not, at least as maybe a pessimist, what I was expecting to walk into.
Right. That was a feature then instead of a bug. The rain kept some of the crazy away,
right. Yeah.
Hadn't thought of it that way before, but anyway, I saw people there who I hadn't seen in my life, and some people I actually went with my best friend from grad school. We're still friends, and we go places together, and we do like sciencey things together a lot. And we picked this as one of the things that we were going to do. So we had a good time over the weekend doing that. And I loved the creativity of the signs, and I loved the idea that people wanted to keep going in the future. Now, I don't know that we will, and this is still an open question, but I felt like people were finally ready to commit to future action because they see how we're in right now. And I do think we're in a lot of danger right now. So.
And so, yeah, I guess it's like harnessing.
What could possibly... what could possibly have happened today? Like, we're recording this, of course, on May 31st for those listening later. But what could have happened today with some sort of Paris
something? Yeah, climate agreement. Yeah, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we doing with that? What's happening?
I mean, we're part of we're alongside a line now with Nicaragua and the great nation of Syria as the only countries. Right. Not part of the Paris Agreement. So,
so on the other hand, why it's important.
Massachusetts closed their last coal plant today. So, so there are things that are still underway, and we still have some momentum on these things, but we can lose a lot of time in 4, God forbid, 8 years. So,
oh gosh, oh my God! Like I legitimately did have a dream last night that Trump wasn't the president, and then I woke up.
No, we didn't.
And it was really just like, oh, God damn it. But okay, so I know. But so that being said, that we have this potential of all of these years with this administration or regime, however you want to call it.
Like, call it regime.
How do we harness sort of that, like the positive energy of something like the Science March and move forward in a way where we as the adults are like doing what we can, but also because for me, one of the big things is always how do we get like the next generation to be better than say the people who have been making poor decisions right now. Right. So it's how do we use that energy in the positive way to advocate for change, really.
Well, I think it will help if we model this good behavior about showing up at our city council meetings and holding our signs and pressing on our legislators at the state level and at the federal level and all these levels, because that's, as I said, when I was growing up, that's what I saw, and that was normal to me. Yeah. And I think that's civic participation that needs to be encouraged in the future too. So I think we have to show how that's done. Though that there's going to be more targeted, I guess, stuff to come out of this. I give the Science March folks so much credit for doing this on the short time frame they had. They were not professional organizers, and I think that was a feature, not a bug. Although some people complained about them not being professional organizers, so they didn't know some of this stuff, and I understand that. but genuineness to the science-y part of it that I think was worth cherishing there. And so I gave them a lot of slack for the organization stuff, like the schedule not coming out really until the day of, or whatever, and I also am giving them some time to organize now post-March to get us to do more things. I've been answering the emails from them that say, tell your legislator that you marched, and I've been, making those calls and sending those emails and stuff like that. But I really hope that we're going to have what I want is like a bat signal, like I want to say, I want everybody, there's Vaxxed is being shown at this city. I want all the people who marched for this to hear about this in this city and show up for Vaxxed with their signs that, vaccines save lives, I want us to, there's some kind of crisis about something going on in DC. If we could aim some people at that. The other side of these issues, they show up. They show up, they talk to their Congress critters. We aren't good at that. And I think that we need some help with that, but I think people are activated now and would do it if we trained them up a little bit. Because we're dealing with people who are actually come professional activism sort of route, so they're better at it. There's a lot of people who came from law, and there's people who came from journalism and PR, and they are wiping the floor with us on some of these issues, So I hope that we can coalesce into something that becomes an effective aiming device, I guess, at certain issues. I hope somebody starts paying attention to the regulations and encouraging people to go, if there's something about the EPA regulations that are about to change, everyone needs to go and fill out the forms there at the regulations.gov site. And I think if we get people comfortable doing that, we can use that for all of these other topics as well. We have a window of opportunity right now where people are interested to know how to do these things. So if we can capture that, this will deliver benefits for a long time.
And I guess that's where social media can be so powerful too, in that it keeps people connected and keeps people informed of, social media is kind of the closest we have to the bat signal, right? Where we can kind of I noticed that personally with my Blue Apron stuff that I did over the past couple of weeks, but I was shocked that, the amount of people that read my blog posts on Science Moms and then read whatever, that I got to write something for Genetic Literacy Project, and I got to have a phone call with Blue Apron, which not thrilled with with the results, but still that you can put stuff out into the world and and even just for other people to hear it. And I know, it wasn't necessarily my full intention, but people have canceled their subscriptions to that meal service because of their stance essentially against, biotech, really, which is what you say when you've made a non-GMO commitment. And I know Coven published a piece today on Forbes about how the non-GMO project logo makes shopping pretty difficult. Yep. And so what are your thoughts about kind of how to speak out against that kind of stuff too, sort of the fear-mongering type of
I miss my cable potato chips. I totally do.
Oh, me too. Those are my favorites.
And I think to myself, what makes you think that this health washing works? It's potato. Who are you fooling?
They're chips.
They're chips.
They're chips.
Right? I'm healthier now, maybe because I'm not eating them, but that probably wasn't your point, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm a little bit baffled by this, and one of the strategies that I think I would like to work on a little bit, and I'm not sure how this will work out, but I want to stress about food safety. Look, if you don't believe in food science, how do I trust you on food safety and appropriate handling of food and all these other this was the Chipotle problem, right?
I'm sure that's what Danny you were thinking.
That is the poster child for this. Absolutely. So you can worry about GMOs, and then if you poison people with listeria, you're still screwed, So I just think this is crazy, and I think that if their priorities are screwed up like this, I just have to not trust them anymore. So I'm going to use that as a strategy to talk about. I was saying though to someone else today that I think what I might want to do is have a mock like we're pulling them out of a cult, like a cult deprogramming. So I was going to get a bag of Cape Cod potato chips and put googly eyes on it and sit it down and talk to it about this cult that it's in, and then offer to remove its tattoos if we have to.
You can take that butterfly off of you.
Exactly.
And
so,
I don't know if it's something for a lot of these companies, at least, like you keep bringing up the best salt and vinegar potato chips I've ever had, but haven't had it for now. I have to go Kroger brand, and that's just not the same. Come on. But I don't know if it's necessarily like the company's own vision of, well, we think GMOs or genetic engineered crops are dangerous or not as healthy or whatever. I wonder if, because we're, of course, we're not in those meetings. I wonder if it's more of a, well, this is what the market research is showing us, that people want to see this. We don't really give a shit one way or the other if it's is safer or not, because bottom line, we want to sell the most amount of delicious potato chips that we can. And if we can do that by, paying a little more up front and getting a return back on that, then that's a positive for them, instead of necessarily being a more ideological point of view, I think.
Yeah, I understand that there's a marketing decision to be made there, but I also think that you can hold companies right now to certain things. Like, it's working for a lot of the environmental folks who are claiming this is an environmental issue when we know better. Like, if you're gonna tell me that your potatoes use more pesticide because you won't use the GMO potatoes, this is a problem for your sustainability efforts at your company, and that could be used against a company in future discussions. Like, okay, or the case of oranges and the citrus greening. Stand with you if you would adopt GMO oranges and explain to people why we have to do this. But if you're going to push us away, we'll
right. And wasn't it Folta that said that he thinks like that's when like the widespread acceptance of genetic engineered crops is going to happen whenever we get to a point where we have to use genetically modified orange instead of because of the citrus greening problem, or even the Cavendish bananas.
And if you want scientists to stand with you, then why don't you stand with us now? We will be champions for you if you will make the right call on some of these science issues that have broad implications across agriculture.
And I think another part for just the general consumer too is like, I'm a single dad now. I have two kind of younger kids, and I'm a homeowner now, which is another time sink. I'm just fucking busy. And so like, I enjoy doing this as basically a second job throughout the week, but the average person, they just want to, watch their couple hours of TV a night and not have to think about this shit. And so I don't know that it's so much as willful ignorance by the majority of people. It's just it's so easy to see like a shitty meme by like GMO Free USA or whoever the hell is making them, and to buy into that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like what I tried to say in my conversation like with Blue Apron is that there's this whole other market of consumers who do understand the science behind it, or the potential that biotechnology has worldwide in terms of issues of hunger. And like you talked about golden rice before, and there's this far-reaching implication and stuff that can happen if we can maybe cut back on our fear narrative, and that these kind of companies would have the vocal support of this whole community. Like, because yes, like Dan, you said, most people are going to the store and they're buying what they need. They're buying what's on sale. They're not like the butterflies on the package of chips, whatever, who cares? And so they're just not saying anything. Then there's the people who are like toxins, whatever, the crazy like March Against Monsanto, which is a dying breed anyways, but then there's this whole other group of people, the science-minded people who would actually, I think, be vocal supporters of these companies. if they decided to say, like, we stand with this kind of new technology that has far-reaching, positive.
Well, it's not even all that new too, is the other thing. It's been around since the early 90s. So it's not anything that's like, well, last year we came up with this potato or this brand of corn.
I'm actually almost irritated by that pink pineapple. Did you guys see that going around?
Oh, yeah.
I did not.
Yeah, so there's this fluorescent pink pineapple. It's really, really cool looking. And it also has lycopene in it, like a tomato would, so it's, potentially healthier for you, although I haven't seen health data on it. But people are apparently sharing all these pink pineapple photos on Instagram, and all the foodies are talking it up, and I'm thinking to myself, just, what, like, really help farmers. There are things that help us reduce pesticides. There are really good things out there, but the pink thing is what finally has hooked you guys. Okay, fine. Well, we could have made pink.
Right. And I think that can even speak to the, like, it takes all different kinds of voices argument that I know we weren't having that here, but it's been roaring today in my personal page newsfeed, is like, should we have, do we need all these different types of voice? That's I view that as just a different, it's a hook for people, and they might not know it's genetically engineered, and if it gets them excited, and then they say, oh, this is so cool, I can't wait to try this, and then they try it, and it's like, well, you just ate a GMO, and look, your dick didn't fall off. So
right. But I'm kind of irritated that, like, it took a pink pineapple to do it. It's just cosmetic.
Oh no, it's fucking stupid. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Right. No, but there's all these things that have helped farmers to do things, and they're to reduce all these other inputs, and to, like, spend time with their kids at the baseball games at night and stuff like this. So there have been lots and lots of benefits for farmers, but people who claim to care about farmers don't care about these benefits. It took a pink pineapple in their mojitos or wherever you're
right. And the thing about that is, a lot of these people themselves are farmers on the 10 by 20 foot plot that they have behind their houses. So they are farmers too.
That's yes. I hear that a lot from people, that they think that their small garden plot is very much like farming. Yes.
Do you get that argument on Twitter? Because I've gotten that argument on Twitter that I should grow my own food.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
I have a lawn the size of a postage stamp, really.
Grow your own food. That's it. Like, just whatever you could grow there is all you can eat. Like, I'm sure my kids would love that if I tried to grow all our own food in the little few pots I have on the deck.
I just appreciate farmers who are growing at scale. Like, and I love seeing, that's one of the great things about Twitter too. I'm exposed to a lot of farmers who are, who show you how big their fields are, and you get the real sense of what their lives are like, and how scaling this up is a totally different ball game. And these families are feeding us, and they're getting so much crap for it. That also bugs me too. I have the sense of justice. like stop beating up on farmers, like, this is pissing me off. We need to help farmers too,
right. And well, yeah, that's it's like the difference, and people always think farmers are stupid for some reason, which, like, I guess I could see where that comes from, because I can drive a combine too. But I mean, you go to a seed catalog, first of all, like, they're like big, there's a lot of options for everything, and so you got 40 to 50 different types of seed, dependent on when you're going to plant, when you want to harvest, what kind of soil you have, how much rain you get, and where you're at in the country or internationally, and you have all these different options, and it's not just going down to Lowe's on a Sunday like I did and picking up a pack of, oh, this looks good, and going with that, because especially when your livelihood depends on that. Like, if you fuck that up, I mean, that's it. Like, for that year, or at least for that season.
I actually had this argument in the Bette Midler thread recently. Did you see the Bette Midler thing?
Oh, she stated an opinion.
You can't patent life. In my response to that was, well, by that logic, if I buy one of your movies or one of your albums, I can make as many copies of that as I want, because I bought it. It's mine now, right?
Yep.
Right.
But
that's
in the
thread, a great comparison. Yeah. In the thread, there were lots of other people consensus, and one woman swore to us that there was only one soy genome. So I threw down a seed catalog. So I'm like, boom,
check this out. Tell me more about the genomes, please. Tell me. I'm a professional genome analyst, okay? Tell me about the genomes. Come on. So anyway, so that was amusing. So yeah, people confuse it with their backyards, and they also have believed so much nonsense that has been put out there, and that's actually one of the things that bugs me, is how effective the nonsense peddlers are. It's very frustrating because they have easy to understand, simple stories that people want to hear, and people swallow that, and they're so confident. They're so Dunning-Kruger. They're so that woman was so certain that there was only one soy genome, and I was like, oh no.
Oh honey, that's adorable.
Right, and she knew in her mind, she was confident in that, and she happened to stumble upon somebody who actually had the answer. But that's where I think, for people in the science communication community, skeptics, farmers, like all these different tribes, and I know we all talk about tribes because I know you talk to Vance too, and like that whole group of people. But I think it is important that we're all communicating with each other because there's so many common goals there.
Right.
And so
another thing I did was I pulled a farmer into that discussion thread, because someone was saying that the farmers have to buy the same seeds for years. They're locked into this contract, and farmers are like, nope. But Brian, the popcorn farmer, Brian.
Oh, I think I do, because I think he was tagged in one of my Blue Apron posts at some point. To kind of, popcorn. I know. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, he has a post about the contract that he signs and why he signs it, and he explained it, and I love that farmer perspective on that. And there's another farmer, a woman from Schmidt, her name Jenny Schmidt. Yeah, and she has a series of great posts on the choices that she makes at her farm and why she makes those choices. And she was one of the ones who threw down a seed catalog at one point. She's like, hey, I have lots and lots of choices here. So here's some of the things that we would look through, and some of the things we would look for. So it's really great to have those voices now available to us to point to when some of these discussions come up. So.
Yeah, so I think just that, knowing people that are experts in things that we're not experts in,
right,
and that have other answers, and because it's all of these different contributions to the discussion, that you never know what kind of contribution to that discussion could change somebody's mind, or somebody who's observing these conversations. And so it's I guess just doing as much personal connection as possible, and all of that. And and I guess I going with the whole tribe thing too. I'm curious about your input and ideas around the idea of the skeptic tribe currently, and what because what you see the current state or past, or where
right,
where it's going. Yeah,
I do think the skeptics have had a valuable role. Before the science community came together, they were out there in front of a lot of nonsense peddling, and some of it sounds silly now because you don't see a lot of Bigfoot stuff, and you don't see a lot of ghost stuff anymore because everyone has a cell phone. If they were really ghosts, we'd have movies about all of them, So a lot of that stuff, and the UFO stuff, a lot of that stuff has sort of declined, I think. But it was important to have a group of people who wanted to use evidence to evaluate things, whatever they were. And they were the only ones, I think, at the time out there who were really getting out in front of people and demonstrating what the meaning of evidence was, and how you consider something, and how you look at a claim, and all that. So that was really valuable. But I feel like the skeptic movement is bifurcating. There's another branch of it now that's more biomedical, biotech sort of, vaccines and pharmaceuticals and GMOs and that sort of stuff. Chiropractors, that sort of medical stuff, toxins and all that. And I think that's hugely important. And I think that's the right place right now for the wider community too, because Bigfoot is just not that big a deal. Although there was a Bigfoot genome that came out. So it was funny. It was great to have the institutional memory of the Bigfoot hunters, because they could tell, like when this genome paper was published and the genomics people were all like, what? We could go to the skeptics and we learned who these people were and what their history was. So that was really helpful, actually. But I think, so there's two things I'm seeing. There's a bifurcation among the old, like the skeptics who did the Bigfoot, ghosts and magic, that sort of thing. And the new biotech, biomedical sort. Other fractures along the community. I think there's a big one in the atheist community, the new atheists and the and there's that, and there's a big problem with feminism and the rarity of female skeptics in a lot of these groups.
We only have 8 hours to live broadcast.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to.
Yeah. So there are these fragments and fractures within this like larger sort of idea of
It's almost as if we're not beholden to a centralized philosophy
structure or something. Yes, right. I know, and I think that hurts us in some ways. Although you know, because we don't have a bat signal to aim at. That goes back to that problem of like, there's no way to get us all aligned and pointing at the same thing at the same time for anything because we have all these different fractures.
Well, and that means everybody has their own bat signal. So now just everything is lit or woke, if you will.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I think it would be better if we had a more sort of centralized, organized structure, but the ones that have existed, at least so far, have not really served the community in that way. So, I would like to see something else come out of it, but I don't know what that is, and I don't know if it can come off of like the Science March sort of thing. Like it would be nice if that kind of coalesced into something more skeptic-y, but without all the previous skeptic baggage. You know, I don't know. I don't know how that will come out. I would like to see some evolution, though. I would say.
Little more variety, a little bit more different voices sometimes, perhaps in that like old school crowd. Did you call some of the, did you say silverbacks for some of the
right?
Is that you? Yes, because when we were talking the food evolution,
right.
Because that was after a conference. And
I was describing the attendees at the skeptics conference I've been to, and I called them silverbacks, and I've got silver, so I'm one of them too. I wish we were seeing younger folks. I wish we were seeing people who were interested in getting into this with new ideas and new ways to tell their stories, and like Miles Power is one of my favorites. You guys know, and James and Buck, those guys, I think they have a route into another group that the silverbacks don't have. Because they do the YouTube stuff, and they are blogging, and they're doing those things that aren't doing to the same way. I think there's a lot of other stuff that we could be doing better. Like I got involved with that group Kurzgesagt who did the videos of the GMO thing. They have these really great animated videos, and I got involved with editing the script for the one that they did recently. And that's not something that scientists would do. Scientists would not do a clever, attractive animation that was really engaging without being completely over the top nerdy, you know? This group had done a good job on it because they weren't totally, like, they weren't top-down science, AAAS sort of coming down from on high saying we will have 400 committee meetings on how this script will go, and we will, you know, there was more of a fluidity to it that I think we need to embrace, that is totally not working in the structure of science as we know it now. You know, I think science is ossified in a lot of ways. They're afraid in a lot of ways. They're keeping their heads down. And I think that is a problem. And I think that the skeptic community has some of that problem too. We need some younger voices. We need more people to go to these meetings. Like, I don't know how many young people with college loans and car loans, and how can you afford to go to Las Vegas for a weekend for, you know, for the skeptic thing, you know? So,
well, that's a tricky thing.
what you do, you get a Patreon going, you sell some T-shirts, you sell some ads on your large Facebook page, and there you go.
Well, I have actually, I have to go to a I have to go to a talk next week, and I'm going to, so I've been asked to speak to science activism, and how does that, what can people do to support that? And I'm going to say, buy the T-shirts, and I'm going to say, give their pages clicks, and go to them and sign up at their Patreons and give them money because if you want more of this content, you need to support this production of this content. And I think that's another thing we're not very good at right now. So.
Just support, and like supporting each other too, I guess, the people who are making the content. I mean, like, and that's the cool thing about, doing what we do. Obviously, like this is not like a real job, like moneymaker type of thing, but it's being able to get ideas out there and to have these kind of conversations. And I know it's like, I mean, Dan gets, more feedback because he has the big Facebook page and all of that, but it's sometimes to get that feedback that like somebody's heard something that has been said and at least makes them think or change their mind about something, or just to know that there are other people out there that share the worldview. It's that community that can exist even without physical proximity to people. That I think is important to keep nurturing. It's
important to have the base and to keep talking to the base and sharing ideas with each other, and to bring in new people over time. Like not every conversation is going to be a game changer. I mean, especially some of these hardcore folks, you'll never move them. But if people can be exposed to these things in different ways, it's going to connect with someone. Like there's somebody's going to make the right place, whether
there's a pink pineapples out there somewhere,
or pink pineapples, or you guys, or whatever it is, right? Like somebody will find the right place for them where they can explore these ideas in ways that they haven't maybe before. So we need to have as many of these avenues as possible, but people need to support them. So
well, I guess to wrap up, because I mean, you're definitely somebody who, as I was getting into sort of this like skeptic world, like following you on Twitter was great, just to see the way you engaged and interacted, and Dan and I like connected and became friends, and kind of, well, I think I probably learned more from you about social mediaing, and then I just, maybe I've taught you a few things along the way too.
I don't know what I had to teach.
But so for people that, would like to follow you, Mary, online and see what you're up to, like where can they find you?
I am not on Facebook. I am apparently one of the few people not on Facebook, but you can find me on Twitter at MEM_Somerville, which is my town. So it's my initials in my town. And that's where I'm most active. But I try to also talk a lot in comment sections of places, so that people who are coming in from all sorts of different directions will also see that there are other perspectives too, and again, you don't win a lot of comment battles, but at least other people are seeing that there's another perspective out there. So I do spend a lot of time doing that too.
Well, thank you for talking to us tonight, and I'm sure that as time goes on, we will invite you back on to talk about whatever crazy stuff is happening in the world of science and activism and all of the things that will be happening during the Trump years.
Well, thanks. Yes, thanks so much for having me. We will align, and we will move forward, and we will survive this. And
yes,
and you know where to find me. Yes, I'll be around.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
All right.